All done. The first part of this video is dedicated to last cardinal points. Some of you are already used to it, so you can skip to chapter 2. But those of you who are new here, hang on. Measure along the side of the last and find the last length. On this last, it came to about 22.5 cm, and I basically rounded up to about 23 cm. Now, the widest points on any last are known as the balls. The balls on the right side and on the inside and on the outside. So those are the two extremities, the two widest points. So if you place the last against a flat surface, you can mark out the two extremities on the inside, and then prior to this time we had marked out on the outside. So let's mark that out. Now, if you draw a line connecting those 2 points together, that line is known as the vamp line. So the vamp line is the line that connects the two balls of your last. Now let's eyeball the center of this last along the middle, in front rather. Now if we draw a line on a piece of masking tape and use that masking tape, the line that we drew on that masking tape, to connect the dots that we made earlier, we will, by doing just that, have gotten our center line in the middle. So the center line basically divides the last along the middle, in front, and also at the back. So that's the center line at the back. So the point of intersection between the vamp line and the center line in front is known as the vamp point. So we've gotten the center line, we found the balls, and then of course earlier on we had our last length. Now let's do some arithmetics. If you divide your last length by 5, that will give you the measurement of a point called the counterpoint, measured from the lowest point on the back center line upward. So 23 divided by 5 gave us 4.6. So we measure at 4.6 as indicated and mark it in. If we add 1 cm to the counterpoint, we will have another point known as the back height, which is also measured 1 cm above the counterpoint. Having done that, we will measure the right side of the vamp line, the outside part of the vamp line, and divide it into 2. Next, we'll connect this point to our counterpoint by drawing a line using our flexible tape. So we'll draw a line from that middle point on the vamp line to the counterpoint. That line is called the quarter line. Now we will measure the quarter line and divide it into 2. On this last, it is 15 cm. So dividing 15 by 2 will give us 7.5 cm. So let's mark 7.5 cm on the quarter line. Excellent. Now, the next point we are going to calculate or mark in is the instep. The instep is the last length divided by 4, and that gave us 5.7 cm. 5.75 cm, we will round off to 5.8 cm. Instep, 5.8 cm. So you measure the instep from the vamp point on the center line in front upward. So we mark the instep from on there and then draw a line connecting the instep to the middle point on our quarter line. With that, we have one half of our top line. The other half we will get by placing our flexible tape on the back height and connecting it to where the quarter line starts on the vamp line. But instead of drawing our line all the way to where the quarter line starts, terminating it where the line coming from the instep meets the quarter line. These lines and points that we just generated, that we just drew on this last, are actually the most important, the cardinal points and lines that you need for shoe pattern designing. So we put it on the last so that you could see what they look like on the last, but we will be designing really on a flat piece of paper. So get ready for chapter 2 of our class. Meanwhile, make I pack my kaya, walk away from chapter 1. This is my rough sketch of the sneakers on this last. Now, don't be worried that I didn't show you step by step on how I got to this sketch. This is a very rough sketch. In fact, I did this just to give you the contrast of what you can do on a flat piece of paper versus what you can do on the last. So we're going to design on a flat piece of paper. But first of all, let's cut the two halves of the taped last into two. So what we are trying to do is to get a mean form on which we are going to ultimately design. So we cut out the outside part of the tape. So what we are cutting out is actually called the last copies. So we cut the outside part, the lateral side of the last copy, and then we'll also peel out the inside part of the last copy. So we flatten them as much as possible, maintaining their real dimensions on the last on a flat surface, flatten them completely, and then mark out, ensure that all of those cardinal points that we generated earlier are clearly marked out on the last copies. Then we'll cut them out. We will cut them, their outline out on the cardboard paper, and then on the inside part, the medial side last copy, we'll cut a few notches at the van point, at the counterpoint, and also at the ball. Then the next thing we will do will be to flip it over and trace it out on a clean piece of cardboard. So let's do that. Having traced it out on the cardboard, we'll be sure to mark in the ball, the van point, and the counterpoint, and then we will place the lateral side, the outside part on which we have this very, very ugly, rough looking design. We'll place heel to heel and tip to tip, meaning the heel of the outside on the heel of the inside and the tip on the tip accordingly. And then we would also trace that one onto the initial outline that we made. Next thing we are going to do is to find the differential, the middle between the two outlines that we made. So if we cut along those outlines, we will have our mean form. So on the underside, the feather edge, you don't need to find the differential. Just take whichever is the longer of the two lines that you have. So right here is our mean form, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be the base, the foundation of all of the designs that we are going to do. But first of all, let us find the average of the vamp lines. So you draw in the lateral side vamp line, do the same for the medial side vamp line, and find the middle. Now let's begin our design. First, we trace out our mean form on a clean piece of paper and marking all our cardinal points. Then we will convert the curve on the top to straight lines. So from the van point towards the tip and from the van point towards the instep. We divide our vamp line into two, and then of course connect our counterpoint to that middle point on the vamp line to get our waterline. Add the back height 1 cm above the counterpoint. Then we will divide our waterline into two, and then draw a line from the instep to that middle point on the waterline to get the first half of our top line. The second half of the top line is drawn by placing a line from the back height as though you are going to where the waterline starts on the vamp line, but then terminating at that line that comes from the instep. So all of our cardinal points have been marked in. For the curve of the top line, I mark 1/8 of the last length on that tongue line over there and curve it in as you see. Then I basically just curve in the tongue of this sneakers For the slit on the facing, I just draw a line parallel to the center line, going towards the instep about 1.5 millimeters away from that center line. Then I want the rib around the eyelet to be about 1.5 cm away from the vamp point. So 1.5 cm away from the vamp point, I draw a right angle from there. Notice that I marked in 2.5 cm as the base of that rib. Then at the top there, just about 1.5 cm, because I want it to triangulate. I want it to curve. So you see the line, the angle that these two lines make when they intersect, that will give me a guide to curve in the rib. So if you look at it, you see that the rib is done. Now for the wingtip is just about 1.2 cm away. Then I just mark about 0.5 centimeter beneath the midpoint on the vamp line, and then draw an angle to it like so. And that would also give me an angle with which to curve in the wingtip. So I curve in the wingtip as you see. The rest of the wingtip I simply did by marking 3 cm, 1/8 of the last length, away from the ball and using my French curve to curve it in. This back is easy to do. I simply just projected 1 cm away from the back height, and following the design guide on the sneakers that we are using as template, I just marked in that back counter to the wingtip. Basically a design choice, following the template of course. So let's outline everything so that you see how clear our design has come. folded paper and mark out the point where it crosses over that center line. Then I'll simply draw in all of the parts that fall before that line. Then I'll draw a right angle from where that point was marked. Draw a right angle towards the base of the rib. Then I'll place it back on the folded paper and draw in all of the parts that fall before that line that I had drawn earlier. Next, using the point where that right angle line touches the edge of the rib as pivot, I'll simply pivot to the right until the rest of the rib lies on the straight edge of the folded paper. When you do this, you'll notice that the initial point from where we drew the right angle has moved about 1 cm, depending on the size of your pattern, has moved a little bit towards the right, which means that it has elongated the pattern. So you simply bring that point back to its original position, but lying straight on the center line, and then draw it in. So that second part that you drew will form where you cut your pattern from. Now you can also make it a curve rather than two angled lines. And then you can cut out this part. Then using a pair of dividers, you can follow that curve that you made earlier on the outside so that it's the same curve and the same width for the inside curve. And of course, that will give you a guide from the amount of material you can cut from the inside. This way, when we unfold, you'd find that you'd have rib that's, a little bit curved, but exactly the same dimensions of what we designed. This way, the slit isn't bigger than what we originally designed it to be. And if we compare and contrast, you could see considerably the amount of space that we saved by just springing the rib. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of part 3. Let's go ahead and see the entirety of the pattern. So that's all of the pattern pieces. I didn't of course show you guys everything, how I created all of these patterns. All of these pattern pieces. It's just a matter of duplicating the various parts. So thank you for stopping by, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it's been worth your time. It's been a very long video, but God bless you and see you on the next class.